Hello, everyone. Before the episode starts, I have a couple announcements I would like to make. I'm going to be reading off my laptop, so it makes me get straight to the point. So, with that being said, as all of you may know, most of our episodes are pre recorded, so it's easier for me to just hop on here now rather than wait a couple weeks until we're not with the pre recorded episodes to give this announcement. So, with that being said, first, we are now on Apple Podcasts, which we are very excited about, and we hope you listen on there if it's more convenient for you. The best way to help us out on Apple Podcasts would be to subscribe to our show and leave a 5-star review if you would like, so that we can reach a broader audience. Next is YouTube. We love the engagement with views and likes, but don't be scared to leave a comment to let us know how we're doing. Like I said previously, up until about episode 5 is pre-recorded, and I believe that we have made pretty good improvements as these episodes go along, but if you have any suggestions that we can fix, of course, we will look at them. Third is that YouTube shows that about 75% of our viewers were not subscribed on our first episode. So if you enjoyed the show, please make sure to hit the subscribe button again to support us, as well as the like and the share button. Share it with your friends, families, aliens, whatever you may feel like sharing it with. And lastly, we now have new intro music, so I hope that you viewers enjoy it. And with that being said, we're going to get into the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncle Mark's Attic, a brand new podcast. Everyone is cordially invited to join host Zach and me, Uncle Mark, as we explore a variety of interesting topics from the fields of paranormal activities, conspiracy theories, unsolved mysteries and disappearances, and lots more. Now, an attic is a storage place where we find old trunks and boxes and bags, and the only way to find out what is inside these items is to start opening them up and looking inside.
You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Uncle Mark's Attic. Feel free to reach out and contact us with your questions and suggested topics. We would love to hear from you.
So come on into the attic with us as we go exploring and opening up all those old trunks and boxes and bags and find out what mysteries they contain.
Today's podcast is regarding the Office of the Director of National Intelligence's report on unidentified aerial phenomena released on June 25th, 2021.
Okay. We chose this particular topic in this document for two reasons. One, because the document was released relatively recently on June 25th, 2021. So it is a current news item. But another reason that we decided to start with this particular topic is because Zach and I were reading over the public survey that was done by the Pew National Center right up to the day before this document was released, so about 1 week before the document was released. And we found some interesting statistics in that particular poll survey report. To me, the biggest one, Zach, was when 87% of the people surveyed, right up until the day before this report was released, reported that they had heard little or nothing at all about the government releasing information about UFO sightings. So I think that's just an indication of the information overload out there, the information explosion. There's a lot of things going on at one time with the pandemic and all the climate change issues that are going on and the fires and all the incredible heat waves. So it kind of concerns us that so many people were indicating that they really weren't aware at all or only aware to a slight degree about the fact that the government was going to issue a report, an official report on the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena and their interactions with some of our own military aircraft.
Yeah, I completely agree. So some of these other statistics that we're going to go over actually right now. The first one is 65% of Americans believe intelligent life exists on other planets. We have 51% of Americans say UFOs reported by the U.S. military are likely evidence of intelligent life outside of Earth. 87% of Americans say UFOs are not a threat, which so far they have not posed to be a threat. 76% of adults under 30 years old say intelligent life exists on other planets. And lastly, 41% of Americans say the federal government is doing a bad job dealing with UFO reports.
That's another reason we wanted to use this topic as our very first topic, and why we wanted to get into this a little bit deeper, because that statistic's pretty interesting. That such a high percent, 41%, literally state that they are very disappointed with our federal government's reporting and the way of dealing with UFO reports. Things that I find interesting, because I'm slightly older than you, Zach. I am 65. I'll get that right out in the open. So I can assure everyone watching that when I was a young boy and first becoming aware of the topic of unidentified flying objects back in the 1960s, I can assure you that 65% of Americans did not believe that intelligent life existed on other planets. It was a topic and a subject that was often the butt of criticism and jokes and things like that. That people were often denigrated or criticized or made fun of if they even indicated that they had an interest in the subject of UFOs, let alone, God forbid, if they had seen one or had any kind of interaction with something that wasn't within the mainstream of our lives at that time in the 1960s. So I'm very intrigued by the fact that the numbers have definitely been going up. And to see that 65% believe that, at least believe intelligent life exists on other planets, is a very stunning development for me. That's a big increase from back when I was a young boy.
Yeah, I actually, one of the more compelling statistics that I think is the 76% of adults under 30 say intelligent life exists on other planets, which just kind of backs up what you were just saying, that a lot of people back then, you know what I mean, didn't believe that, and they would have pretty much assumed that you were crazy if you did pull that up and
Yes.
say that.
You were definitely ridiculed. I can say that from being alive then. And it wasn't a subject actually that was brought up often by my classmates. It was, it just wasn't something that was a respectable subject. It wasn't really believed. So thank you.
Yeah. So this is the preliminary report of these sightings, which actually starts here. We're going to go to this one first. This is the first one, which actually starting in 2004 and goes to 2021, which is 17 years. This is only a 9-page document, so I can only imagine how many pages the document would be if it was every confirmed UFO sighting from ever.
From the 1940s on, certainly when we first comes into in the mainstream in America as far as news stories and coverage. Yeah, it would be the size of the Bible, I think, if you include all of the reports. This particular report, like Zach said, it's unclassified. It's only 9 pages long. I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't give any real detailed information on any of the 144 actual reported incidents that were reviewed and investigated in this report that was released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence here. And there were 17 different federal agencies involved in these reviews, the analyses of the information and any documentation or evidence. And those 17 agencies included such groups as, of course, the military. You have the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, Naval Intelligence, the FBI, because the FBI will get involved anytime that there is any sort of unexplained aerial phenomena that comes into restricted airspace or over a restricted airspace of military bases. So that's why the FBI was involved. And that's quite a large group of federal agencies that were involved in this review and in preparing this report. The report actual title is The Preliminary Assessment of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. So that implies that there's going to be an additional report, if not more, coming in the future from all of these agencies that prepared this initial report. But no real detail, just the fact that there were 144 incidents that were investigated, and 143 of them remain unexplained at this time. Just one they were able to actually determine some sort of rational and logical explanation for what had happened. So,
and we're going to go over pretty much the beginning of why this action was taken a little bit later. This information was leaked, and like I said, we're going to go over that actually pretty soon here. So I'm going to start with one of the first encounters on this preliminary report, which would be the 2004 USS Nimitz UFO sighting, or the Tic Tac looking object. So in this interview, it's a 60 minutes interview, which it will be linked down below. And for those listening on Spotify, you can just kind of search it up on YouTube. Um, it's pretty much called Navy Pilots Describe Encounters of UFOs. So what they say in this interview is that they're on some kind of test flight, just kind of doing whatever they do on test flights, and they come across this unidentified flying object. And they say that it was hovering under the water, causing a churning effect, like disturbing just under the ocean's otherwise calm surface. And then it kind of came up out of the water, and it started to mirror the movement of one of the jets. And they said they saw this for about 5 minutes or so, and there was 4 people in this incident that saw the same exact thing. And then they said that it just kind of disappeared out of thin air. And in the interview, he says just seconds later, the USS Princeton acquired the target 60 miles away. And the lady in the interview said, "If I saw this solo, I don't know if I would have said anything because it sounds so crazy when I say it." And something to add to that is another article that I was reading said that it took about a minute. Even if it was a minute, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. This is the equivalent of the aircraft moving 3,600 miles per hour, which is Mach 4.8. And according to the Boeing Aircraft Company, the F-18 Super Hornet jet only reaches a maximum speed of 1,200 miles per hour, which is Mach 1.6. So that, in and of itself, just kind of shows how fast these aircrafts actually do move. And Gary Voorhees confirmed with a Navy sonar operator that the craft was moving 70 knots or 80 miles per hour. This is 2 times the speed of our nuclear subs. So that is just underwater alone. And I think that is a very compelling piece of evidence there. And nothing was said or done about these reports for about 5 years until Luis Elizondo investigated it, which he was the head of ATIP.
Yes, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That's right. That was a black budget program that was set up by the Pentagon. So it was classified as far as the fact that this program existed and the fact that $22 million was spent by the federal government through the Pentagon's budget for that year, starting in 2007 for that particular program in order to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the phrase they're using now for unidentified flying objects. That used to be the popular term, but now they're calling them unidentified aerial phenomena or UAPs. Yes, he was running that program inside the Pentagon, but the budgeting for that actually came about as a result of the then Senate Majority Leader, Senator Harry Reid from Nevada. He was the one that really got that money and that funding available for the ATIP program, because he had been getting quite a bit of information, both from military and civilian sources, as he's explained, regarding unidentified aerial phenomena and the reality of it, and the fact that certainly many people that had encountered it did not know what was going on. So he wanted a properly funded program being run through the Pentagon, through our Department of Defense, to be working on this particular issue. So that's where the money comes from for that ATIP, that Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program that you're talking about now. Yep.
So we're going to go over Senator Harry Reid a little bit more here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But we do have a clip of this 60 Minutes interview, a clip of Lou Elizondo talking about these aircrafts. So I'm going to play that actually right now.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space, and, oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity.
So that, clip in itself kind of just states that we have really no idea what we're dealing with. Do you have anything to add about that clip?
No, that really it sums up a lot of the reports that were coming in from our own military pilots. Most of the reports that are in this particular 9-page unclassified report that was issued on June 25th, most of those reports are coming from the United States Navy sources, pilots or crewmen on board any of the naval craft that were in the areas when these things were happening.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what kind of flying object we have. I mean, like military wise, that doesn't have wings or, like he said, any signs of propulsion. One thing that he did say in that, I don't know if it was in the, I don't remember if it was in the clip or if I saw it later on. He said that it was something that moves and does 600 G's worth of force. And I was looking yesterday. The maximum that a human being can like withstand G-force wise is 9 G's, which is a lot less than 600. So
Yes.
obviously, it's not being manned by something from this Earth, or like they say, it could be some kind of drone. Um, Mark, I'll let you get into the reasons or the what am I trying to say here? The excuses as to what it could be.
Yeah, first, if we can just go back a bit, though, why was this report even issued from the office of the Director of the National Intelligence? And there's a couple reasons. First off, starting back in 2004, we did start, our United States military started receiving reports from their own personnel, mostly pilots, about these unidentified aerial phenomena that were appearing in the skies while they were doing military maneuvers. And these unidentified aerial phenomena were performing in a way that we certainly can't with any of our U.S. military technology, and we believe no other nation's military technology would be able to produce that also. So anyway, information began to leak out on an individual basis from some of the individuals in the military who had been involved in these incidents, and after they left the military, they began to quietly share this information or leak this information to other people. So then we come up to the New York Times in 2017, published an article which did two things. At first, it talked about these people who were providing videos and other evidence of these encounters with UAPs by our military pilots. It talked about the fact that there were, this was considered actual evidence, proof that there was something up there that's flying around in ways that we can't match. As one pilot said, they're flying circles around us, doing things we can't do, and we can't keep up with them either. But the second part of that article also talked about, for the first time, the fact that we had that secret Pentagon program, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, and that was big news. So now it had become more of a public issue. There was more awareness among the general public about this subject, and members of Congress were beginning to get inquiries and feeling some pressure from some constituents about this whole thing, saying, is this all real? Is this really going on? And what are we going to do about the fact that some of these unidentified aerial phenomena are actually entering into restricted airspaces, either over, our own military bases, or say when we're doing military maneuvers, doing practice maneuvers out in either the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. So it was Congress that really mandated that they wanted something definitive and concrete from the Pentagon, from the Department of Defense about these UAPs. And that's what led up to this report that was just released on June 25th of this year. That's the genesis of that whole thing. That's why we're finally getting an actual report from the government. And this is the first time that you're really going to see an official report from anywhere in the U.S. government confirming that there are unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomena that they really cannot explain as to what they are or where they come from or who made them.
Yeah, I agree. I have a couple theories that we can dabble in a little bit later in the episode.
Right.
But like Mark said, these are like restricted airspace. So why is it that these UFOs are in this, you know what I mean, restricted airspace? And what are they doing in this restricted airspace? And it almost raises the question as to if it is a different country, you know what I mean? Why are they spying on us? And why is it that for so long these people have been withholding this information that they have this technology? And you would think that they would bring it up and they would brag and they would boast and they would say, "Hey, you know what I mean? We're watching you. We you know what I mean? We have this technology. We're way more technologically advanced than you are. You're so behind, etc., etc." Um, and it's scary to think that we're being watched by something that we don't know what it is. And Mark's trying to
I'm
figure
such
out.
a techie. I think I just
Trying to
launched a
figure out.
missile.
All right. So I'm gonna go into how this information came to really be about. In 2017, Christopher Mellon leaked these unclassified videos um, to the New York Times, which is kind of what set this in motion. Um, and my question about that is, why is it that he had to go and be, like, I guess, essentially undercover or do it in private so that nobody knew it was him and leak this information instead of it already being to our knowledge, as to like what's going on in these restricted airspaces and why we don't know what these objects are flying around in these restricted airspaces.
I think that's part of the culture that's been going on for all these decades since you had the very first UFO or UAP reports from the 1940s. There has long been that very strong, very ever-present culture of cynicism about the entire idea of any kind of unidentified flying objects that we really can't explain based on man-made technology. There's just the ridicule that pilots have been that have had to suffer, anytime that they have, whether they're military or commercial airline pilots, that they have been subjected to, really, when they did come forward and make these kind of reports. If you actually go through the 9-page unclassified report, you will see in there that they do note that a number of the military pilots that were interviewed during the process of putting this report together made it very clear that there was a reluctance among pilots still to come forward. There was a real reluctance because that culture is still there, that they would be subject to ridicule, that people would be making jokes about them and making jokes about the little green men hanging out with them and all that. That's been a part of the culture for a long time. That's why people finally got fed up and were starting to leak this kind of information. These are good people. Many of them were the military veterans themselves who had been involved. So these aren't, hoaxers or someone that's coming up with a crazy story or trying to get some sort of 15 minutes of fame. These were good, patriotic people that were actually leaking the information out because they think it's a very serious issue and it is something that we should be focusing on and putting a lot of attention and resources into solving, because it does pose a threat to national security when there's something coming into restricted airspace or flying over any area of the United States, and we don't really know what that is, who they are, and what they represent.
And a good question to really add to that and to ask is, if these people were so scared to be like ridiculed and all that kind of stuff, why would they bring it up? You know what I mean? Why would they raise the question, or why would they even put their credibility on the line to bring something up that is quote unquote make believe? So I think that's a very good question to ask.
It speaks to their character. They're willing to undergo whatever they have to undergo now because these things have been happening. This report is strictly restricted, as Zach said, to the period of 2004 till 2021. Now, the explanation for that was because they felt that these are the incidents, like I said, mostly from United States naval pilots and personnel. These are the incidents that they have the best evidence, the best amount of documentation that they could review. And that's why that was. But these people that are coming forward, I do think that they have the absolute best of intentions. They realize it's a serious issue. The report itself does point out that this is a matter, first off, of national security, if we have things flying over that we can't explain. It's also a matter of air safety, as the report points out, because you don't just have military pilots in the sky, you have commercial airline pilots. And there's a lot more of those commercial airline planes flying up there than military planes. So there is a fear of possible collisions and things like that definitely make it an air safety issue. So that's why these people came forward. Enough of the games, enough of them reporting to their superiors while they were in the military. Look at the documentation we copy, our sensors, our sensory equipment on the aircrafts that we're flying. Look at that and our own visual contacts when those happened. And, the problem was they were reporting these things and then nothing's coming back to them. Nothing's coming back through official channels about, this is being looked into or anything's being done about this. It was just a kind of a wall of silence. So that's why these people that leaked this classified information were leaking it.
Yeah, and something that we kind of talked about the other day is these people would go and they would tell their higher ups, and their higher ups would kind of just be like, "Oh, you know what I mean? Don't bring it up, brush it off. It's nothing." So my question is, do they even know what it is that they're dealing with, or they are just scared to bring that to their higher ups and raise a question about these unidentified flying objects and have them also get ridiculed for believing these people for coming to them in the first place?
Yeah. Let me just go into some of the initial information that the official report actually did point out, just to give a quick overview to try to get everything under control here. There were 144 reports from U.S. government sources, mostly U.S. Navy, that were reported. Only one report was actually able to be reviewed, studied, analyzed, and then they were able to come up with an actual explanation of what that particular UAP was. The other 143 unidentified aerial phenomena, they don't have an answer. That's the point of this report. They just don't know what to explain. But it is interesting that 80 of those reports involve observations by our pilots in our military planes. They involve observation with multiple sensors. So it's not just one device, the radar device, or whatever, or the weapon-seeking device. It's multiple sensors, and 21 of the 143 reports, excuse me, that are in the unexplained category involve unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Very fast speeds, incredible, being able to stop instantaneously, being able to turn, things that we just don't have the technology for right now. Now, another interesting point is that 11 of the pilots did report near misses with a UAP. That's one of the things that led them to say that that's why this does present an air safety issue here, and it's a critical issue, because that was 11 near misses by our own military pilots with these UAPs. Most of the unidentified aerial phenomena, and I'm quoting right from the report, probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of the UAP were registered across these multiple sensors: radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and even visual observations by the pilots. So there are probably multiple types of these unidentified aerial phenomena requiring different explanations based on the range of appearances and the actual behaviors that were described in the reports.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to go over some of these explanations that the government
There we go.
were saying that these things could be. So if you don't mind, I'll go over these.
Sure. Start with number one.
Airborne clutter, which could be birds, balloons, unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Number two, natural atmospheric phenomena, ice crystals, moistures, thermal fluctuations that register on radar systems. Number three, the U.S. government or industry developmental programs, classified programs by U.S. entities, government, or private industry. And the last one, well, we have two more. Foreign adversary systems, which would be technologies developed by China, Russia, etc. And five, mine and Mark's favorite, other.
What a great catch-all category, other. Just think about some of these, though. When you look through the report, or if you've seen any of these videos and any of the news reports on the leaked videos and all that, one of the things that come across is how often these unidentified aerial phenomena are operating at hypersonic speed, which is faster than the speed of sound, which we supposedly, no country on Earth was supposed to have any sort of hypersonic drone at this point, but they do tend to operate at hypersonic speed. So birds, balloons, or unmanned aerial vehicles for the airborne clutter, I just know in my own life I've never seen a bird flying at hypersonic speed or a balloon. I've just never seen it.
A bird flying at Mach 4.8.
That would be interesting. I'm sure the Audubon Society would like to see that, the Society for People That Love Birds, but I've never seen it, and I've never heard of anything like that or seen any report. But anyway, because they're working with what evidence and material they have, that's why they've had to come up with these categories. And the next one is natural atmospheric phenomena, like you said, ice crystals or moistures, thermal fluctuations. I don't know. when you look at some of those videos, I mean, you clearly see what our military pilots reported. They see actual flying objects that are moving, that they're tracking, and they're being tracked across multiple sensors. So, I mean, maybe you could have a glitch or something happening with one of your systems when you have multiple sensory systems, reporting the same thing. I don't think all of them are picking up necessarily, like they say, some sort of thermal fluctuation in the of radar systems or anything like that. And the third thing that I did find this interesting: the U.S. government or private industry, basically, is either the government or private industries engage in some sort of classified secret programs with these various aerial phenomena that are being seen. I find that hard to believe. As far as private industry, I mean, certainly there could be aerospace companies and anyone involved with aircraft technology that could be maybe trying to work on something like a hypersonic drone. But these sightings go back all the way to 2004. So if you have a private company that's out to make a profit, and a private company or organization has made these hypersonic drones that are being seen and reported and tracked on multiple sensory systems, when do they plan on starting to sell these and making a profit on them? That would be my first logical question about that. I find that a little bit hard to believe. I don't doubt that maybe someone's working on something like this, but I can't believe that they would have it around for at least 17 years. And I think these type of things, these sightings, these type of incidents go back long before 2004. But since this report's restricted to that period, after 17 years, I mean, when are you going to start announcing to the world, like, look what we made, look what we've flown and tested, and we want to sell it because we're going to make a profit off of this? So I question the idea of private industry being responsible for these things. I just don't think, it doesn't make any sense to me, logically speaking. Certainly not very good business sense if you're flying these things and spending an awful lot of money on research and development, on the design of these things, and then the actual production and manufacture of them, and then you're actually testing them. How long are you going to test them before you start selling these things, letting the world know you have them, and then making the profit that you normally do? And as far as the U.S. government, I mean, up until now, when I watch some of these physicists that have been interviewed on TV, in the wake of this report being issued on June 25th, I mean, as far as those scientists were aware, they didn't think anybody on planet Earth yet had hypersonic drones. So what are we saying when we say category number 3, U.S. government or industry development, that our government would actually have created these hypersonic drones, and what, they've been flying them around now for 17 years, doing what, testing them and doing nothing better than, you have nothing better to do than spooking our own military pilots or anybody else that sees these things. How long would you be doing this before you're going to let it be known that, hey, we've got this? We still have that edge. We're still number one in the world. We have this edge. I mean, certainly our own military pilots that were encountering these UAPs had absolutely no experience with anything like these before, and they had no knowledge of anything like this being in our own military arsenal, available weapons and planes and so forth. So I just question that whole idea of it being the U.S. government or private industry. I think it doesn't make sense to me. Foreign adversary was number 4. Is in other words, are these hypersonic drones that have actually been built and are being flown by countries such as China or Russia, or maybe countries that are, known for being sponsors of international terrorism, adversaries of the United States and potential adversaries of the United States? Again, that's a scary thought. I mean, if that's true, number one, that's very disappointing, because we, the people, pay the freight for the military and for our government. We're the ones paying our taxes and supporting all of this research and development. And I thought, and I think all of us thought, we're paying this because we're supposed to be maintaining an edge to keep us number one in the world. So if these things are in fact these incredible hypersonic drones that make no sonic boom, no visible exhaust or anything like that, these things that scientists themselves have been saying, we didn't think anybody in the world had these yet. We were completely unaware of this. That's a pretty scary thought, number one. But number two, I question that. I mean, if any foreign adversary really has designed these hypersonic drones and they're using them to test our defenses, and there's plenty of people out there on social media saying that, that, hey guys, this is all it is. It's just foreign adversaries. Again, these reports date back to 2004. How long are you going to be doing that? This is 17 years now, at least. And as I said, I think it's longer when you go back into other cases that weren't reviewed by the organizations, the government agencies that prepared this report. So I would say, how long are they going to do this? How long are they going to be up there playing tag with our military planes or, flying? I understand the theory. You would think that, yes, any adversary would want to be able to design something like this, test our defenses, see what information they could get access to, with overflight surveillance and things like that. But I'm just very skeptical that any foreign country has gotten that far ahead of the United States and would be able to design these things that have so puzzled and alarmed our own military pilots. So other is the last category, and that is the great catch-all phrase, something else. And, I don't want to be totally critical on the report. I know that when you read through the report, they are promising the United States Congress, that being the Defense Department, the Pentagon, all of these agencies that were involved, including the FBI, they're all promising that, look, we're going to do a more comprehensive job from here on in reviewing any reports from anybody in any branch of the military. And we're going to do a much better job of investigating this and researching what's going on and trying to get to the bottom of this. So they are making, promises. They are admitting that things in the past were not done properly, that there was that culture of ridicule and, suppression, really, of reports that should have been made public. They're promising a little bit more transparency. And I think that's why the category other is probably the one we want to, I think you and I know, focus on it, but I would suggest that other people might look at those and think about what we just said about these 5 categories. And I think other is going to be the category. That's the one where we're going to be focusing on, because that's probably the most likely category for most of these UAPs. And certainly those cases where we talked about how they were caught on multiple sensory devices, and certainly about the ones that are, performing at speeds and performing maneuvers that we just can't match.
Yeah.
Running circles around our own military pilots, as they say.
So real quick, I just want to run through this list because you pretty much hit every point that I pretty much had, but I just want to kind of give a little bit of opinion on each of these real fast.
Sure.
So for number 1, the airborne clutter, I mean, looking at some of the videos, it is almost impossible for it to be a bird. It doesn't have wings, obviously, in some of the videos, as you can tell. Like a paper bag, a balloon. Again, doesn't really make sense to me. An aerial vehicle or a drone, like Mark said, it's not very likely that these drones or anybody really has the technology to make these drones be able to move at those speeds and make those maneuvers like they are in these videos. So number 2, the natural atmospheric phenomena like the ice crystals, moistures, and thermal fluctuations. I just kind of find that to be another kind of poor excuse like number 1. These things are moving, they're rotating, and the accounts that people are having, they're seeing these things with their own eyes. And again, I just think it's kind of a poor excuse and another kind of diversion excuse to get people to just be like, oh, okay, and just kind of brush it off, when, I mean, these people are trained pilots and they're trained to have an eye for things like this, and they know what they saw, and I don't think it's fair to discredit anybody.
Right.
So I just think that's another very bad example. And so I think 3 and 4 are the most they have the most potential to be true. The U.S. government or industry development programs, such as classified programs, which obviously they wouldn't give us the information to that if they are working on something that has that kind of technology to spy and to just see how it works against their own radars, because maybe they have the idea or the thought that they're better than everybody else, and their radars are better and they're more advanced, because they do spend a lot of money on the military. So I don't see why they wouldn't practice against what they consider to be the best military to put these UFOs up against. And then 5, foreign adversary systems, technologies developed by China, Russia, etc. Kind of goes with number 3. Maybe they're spying on us. It poses no actual threat so far, so as of right now, there's nothing to be scared about. But if it is from a foreign country and they're flying in these restricted airspaces, then it is something to be kind of worried about. we've seen that none of these are really kitted with like machine guns and like missiles and stuff like that. So in that sense, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like we're not going to get attacked. Um, but in the sense of someone is gathering information,
Yeah.
that is definitely something that is kind of scary to think about.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are all good points. And as I said earlier, I hope to God some other nation hasn't gone and leaped that far ahead of us. Our own United States military and our own industrial facilities here. I hope they haven't gone that far ahead of us that they're able to come up with these flying drones, these hypersonic drones, ahead of the United States and now have an advantage over us. That's the part that bothers me very much. Because if that's true, then we've really failed.
Yeah,
We have really failed. Both our military and our intelligence communities have failed.
yeah. I mean, if they did, I mean, congratulations. That's a terrific like technological advance. But in the sense of like the safety over here, I mean, that isn't very good for us. I would hope like a World War III or something like that wouldn't start because of something like this. But
Right.
knowing like the past of just history in general, it's always kind of been, oh, we're gonna butt heads with everybody, and we're not gonna be happy for these technological advances that we've made. Um, but like I said, it is kind of a concern to think that these UFOs are in these restricted areas, and for all we know, they could be spying on us.
They could be. I don't know. One thing I want to point out right now, we'll go back a little bit about something you talked about earlier. When we're talking about these unidentified aerial phenomena, as the report said, they're not all the same. There are different shapes and different capabilities that they're showing. So the first case that you were talking about, the first reported incident from 2004 was that Navy pilot who captured that UFO footage that has been all over the internet, all over the news now. And the way he described that particular UAP was as a smooth white oblong object, 40 feet long, basically resembling like a giant Tic Tac. Those Tic Tac candies. No visible wings, no rotors, no propulsion systems, and no exhaust plume, but able to travel at hypersonic speed. So in his opinion, and the opinion of many scientists who have now looked at these films, the videos of the sensory device reports on these UAPs, the objects seem to defy the laws of physics. Going at hypersonic speed without making a sonic boom is supposed to be impossible. It could descend from 50,000 feet to 100 feet in just a few seconds and could change direction instantaneously and all that. Another interesting thing was what that pilot said that he was attempting to use his radar. They jammed the radar, that object, whatever that flying giant Tic Tac was, it was able to react to his maneuvers and actually jam his attempts to use his radar against it. So that to me implies an intelligence there. But there were other sightings, and there have been other videos that are out there that show that it's not just all giant Tic Tacs that are flying around up there that are unexplained. Some of the UAPs that have been recorded and reported on have been described as almost like an acorn-shaped object, and some have been reported as flying triangular-shaped objects. And that's why when you talk about, could it be another country, or could it even be our own U.S. government secret project or whatever? Well, these flying triangle reports go back decades, not just in the United States, but elsewhere in the world. They go back decades. You had reports of a substantial number of flying triangular vehicles in Europe back in, say, 1989 to 1991. I know that especially in the country of Belgium, where the Belgium Air Force was attempting to intercept these things and track them and follow them. It got to the point where they actually asked the United States, is this something that you're working on? Is this some secret weapon of yours? Because we don't know what they are and we can't catch them and we don't know what they are and we don't explain them. But so you've had flying triangular unidentified aerial phenomena for decades now. So if that's a secret U.S. government project and invention and weapon or aerial craft, how long do you plan on keeping it secret? I mean, it's been around for decades now. There's been multiple reports, not just by military, but by law enforcement officials and regular civilians like us. How long do you keep something like that secret? You're testing it and you're using it and seeing the capabilities, seeing does it really work. Well, my God, you've had it for decades now. So if if these UAPs that are triangular shaped and that have been reported by our pilots, I mean, if that's some United States government secret project, we sure have been keeping it secret a long time. And what are we doing with them?
Yeah, and a lot of that I think stems into like Area 51. I know there's a lot of theories
Right.
with that, and one of the things that I think about most is because I've read it and I've seen a couple theories where it's like Area 51 is where they pretty much manufacture these things, and they take the aliens, UFOs that crash land or the ones that they are able to shoot down, and they study them and they're able to fix them up and get them running and stuff like that. So I mean that could as well be an explanation. I mean it sounds far fetched, but really a lot of the things don't sound far fetched. Like it makes sense almost in a way.
Yeah, when you get into those subjects, and that's something we can delve deeper into in another podcast.
Yes,
I mean, there's so many things involved in UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. There's an awful lot involved there. You can't possibly cover it in one podcast unless you're continuously broadcasting
Yeah.
without ever stopping for months on end.
Yeah, it's
There's
like a
just been so much that's gone on.
it's like a big like spider web, and it just kind of stems in all different directions, and
Yes.
it's all connected, and it's all like it all correlates together. So we will definitely go into those like ideas and those conspiracies, and we'll definitely talk about them and how they connect to each other and how they connect to, I guess you could say, even this, because this is a big topic just in itself. But when you take a step back and you look at the bigger picture, like all the theories about UFOs and everything that's happened and the timeline of the first UFO sighting all the way up to the most recent, something's going on, and people obviously don't know what it is. That's why they're called UFOs, and people believe that aliens man these things, as the government says, maybe drones, or it could be a paper bag, um, which
Could be.
which is, I think, the most far-fetched theory. And I'm a very open-minded person, and I know Mark is a very open-minded person. So if you do have theories about what this is, please feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to comment down below. We'll be looking at all the comments and everything like that. So we are definitely open-minded. We don't discourage you to do your own research either. I think it is a very positive thing to do. I think because you cannot believe everything that you see on the internet, but if you go and you do your own research, and it makes sense to you, and that's what you believe in, that is great. We would love to hear from you guys. Anything else you would like to add to my little ramble there?
No, that's not a ramble. That was very, those are good points. And we do want to hear from other people. One thing I would say is, as someone who, since I was a young boy around 6th grade and first started just reading once in a while about UFOs and all that, the one thing that I think anyone who's ever looked at the field of ufology could say, or unidentified aerial phenomena, many times people can honestly make a mistake or not really understand what they're looking at when they see something very quickly and it might appear strange to them. But overall, I think anyone who's ever done serious research in the field of ufology, the study of UFOs and UAPs, will tell you that basically by the time everything is wrapped up, about 95% of objects, at least 95% of objects that have been initially identified as unidentified flying objects, because you're not sure exactly what they were, they will be resolved. There will be, a pretty high rate of being able to explain satellites and drones, Chinese lanterns, all these kind of things that have been seen, and people have don't know exactly what they're looking at, and so they are unidentified until someone's able to review the information, the material, the evidence, the documentation, and then determine if they can actually identify it, and then it becomes an identified flying object. So it's those 5% or so of the cases that are really the ones that are most interesting for those of us who are interested in the field. And I think right now that when you read this report, and they're basically saying that it could be this, could be that, but overall, those 143 incidents, primarily U.S. Navy incidents, they really can explain. I'm a little disappointed with that answer, but I wasn't surprised, as when I watched the news conference, and I read through the 9 pages because it's kind of been the pattern all along, ever since the first really big, reported incidents of unidentified flying objects in the 1940s, right on up through now. I mean, it's part of that culture that we talked about earlier. The subject was never really given the thoroughness that I think it should have been treated with, the scientific investigations that should have been going on, and the transparency. That's the big thing that really bothers me, is the transparency. In this report, they are promising that things are going to be done much more methodically. Perhaps they'll do quarterly reports to the United States Congress or whatever, but transparency is the big question. That's what I want to see from all of these agencies, from all of the official representatives of the government and of our military intelligence, if there's really going to be that sort of transparency. Because really the track record's pretty poor. That percentage of people that we had talked about earlier that just don't think the government's doing a very good job, I mean, that's a complaint that's been going on for a long time now, and it's a valid one.
I completely agree, and I wonder if I'll even be around when these UFOs turn to IFOs, or if they ever will turn into IFOs, if we ever figure out what they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point, because it depends. It leads us to the 3 questions that you and I have talked about by ourselves. When you read through this report and you watch those videos and you read the news and you're out on social media looking at all these things, I mean, what are the 3 big questions that come out when we step back from this report right now and look at it? What are these objects? Where are they from? And who's making them? And of course, after that, it'll be like, and why are they here then? If it's not a foreign adversary or a United States government or a private company. One other area that has been brought up by some people is that they think, and I've seen a number of sites on the internet that have some people kind of pushing out this theory of, everybody relax, all these things are glitches or malfunctions in the machinery on our military aircraft that that are taking, recording all of these things. It's just something within the machine itself. They're actually recording something. There's a defect, there's a malfunction or whatever. That particular explanation is one that I find very insulting. I think it's a denigrating comment directed towards all of those military pilots, all of the military personnel who serve as technicians and maintaining all of these aircraft or the actual naval vessels where the radar is also tracking them, and also the people that have designed and produced and supplied all of the sensory devices that have been used on all of these reports. Are you saying that none of these people is intelligent enough to realize when there's a glitch or a mistake in these various sensory equipments like the radar? I think that's really an insulting thing to say to these people. That's a real put down on our pilots, and they don't deserve that because they're the best in the world. It's a real put down on all the other military personnel that are working on these aircraft and on our naval vessels and anything else that has any kind of sensory tracking that's been done on UAPs, and also the companies that manufacture these and that provide these to the U.S. military. I just think that one is kind of a smug attempt at debunking. And once again, there you go, immediately, going into criticism. And, really it's an implied put down on these people. That one, I find that very hard to believe, especially when you have multiple, as the report itself says, there were individual planes with multiple sensory reports, and recordings that were going on. So are all of these machines malfunctioning at the same time? Do all of them have these repeated defects? Because just this report alone was looking at 143 incidents and reported incidents where they can't explain what these things were, but they were being recorded. So I find it hard to believe that there's some sort of technical glitch in these, and with all the money we spend on the military aircraft that we use and all of our military equipment. I just find that one to be a really condescending, debunking article that just doesn't carry any weight with me.
And real quick, I just want to say that this topic is on the United States, so I don't want anyone to think that we're being very conceited about our country and people look at us like, oh, look at these guys, you know what I mean? They're so USA, we're the best. Because I know if I read an article of, say, perhaps a Belgian Navy or Air Force seeing one of these UFOs, I wouldn't discredit them either, because these people are trained to do a certain job and they know what they see. So I just wanted to bring that up and say that we're not putting down anybody else who has ever possibly seen one of these UFOs or anything like that, because it is very very plausible that you could have seen one of these UAPs or UFOs or whatever you want to call them. And we don't want to like put that down or discourage that you guys aren't considered the best of your country. What Mark was trying to say is that they're the best of what we consider the best. Like, they don't just get this job overnight. It's not something that you can apply for like applying at McDonald's. You know what I mean? These people have a certain set of skills that they have to display every single day at their job, and it's not an easy thing to do. So with these glitches that Mark was talking about in the radar, I actually want to go into the Ryan Graves phenomena that he saw.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we're actually going to play a video here in a couple seconds. But
Good.
He said that these radars that he had were updated in 2014 to advanced radars. So I find it very hard to believe that these newer advanced radars that they put into these aircrafts glitched. And I find it very hard to believe that his eyes glitched to as what he saw.
Right.
And he said that they would see these UFOs every day for a couple of years,
Right.
which is crazy to me. I mean, if you're seeing these UFOs every day, you kind of get used to them being around.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so we're going to play that video actually for you here right now. Let me pull it up, and I will play this video right now.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
So that was just a short 8-second clip from the 60 Minutes interview. The same 60 Minutes interview from earlier that the Navy pilots describe encounters of UFOs. And pretty much these guys are shocked as to what they're seeing. It looks to be I would say that's an acorn shape almost.
Yes, I would agree. That's one of the incidents with an acorn-shaped UAP.
And I feel like you can't really debunk that as something like a bird, or because it's rotating in such a way that it's almost hard to believe that it would be a bird. I don't think it would be an ice crystal or anything like that. I mean, it just has such an odd shape, and it's moving at such weird ways that really honestly can't be explained. And like I said, these radars were updated in 2014. So is the government gonna admit that easily that it could have been a glitch? Like, it's almost like, oh yeah, we messed up. I find that hard to believe that they would want to admit that they messed up.
Yeah, they're not going to want to admit that. No, that's certainly part of the history that we've been dealing with the whole unidentified aerial phenomena research since the 1940s, and no one's going to want to talk about that sort of thing. One thing I wanted to, if I could just circle back on for a minute, because I was looking at this today, we had mentioned about that Pentagon, the article in the New York Times back in 2017 that first leaked out about these videos that we've been talking about and that are referred to in this report from the government, and also that the establishment of that Pentagon program, a black budget item that was not public knowledge for the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So when Senator Harry Reid at that time was able to get that funding, like I said, about $22 million, that program actually ran for some years before it was shut down. It was shut down in 2012. But when Senator Reid was able to get the funding for that, he did reach out to a longtime friend of his, Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace in Las Vegas, to actually run and oversee that program. When Bigelow was interviewed in 2017 on 60 Minutes, he had said that he was absolutely convinced that aliens exist and that he was absolutely convinced that UFOs have visited the Earth. Luis Elizondo was the military intelligence officer who was actually running the program at the Pentagon itself while that program was in effect for those years. Now, funding for that was officially shut down in 2012, but Elizondo has said that after the funding was cut, he still continued to work on UAP or UFO research with various U.S. Navy and CIA officials until he himself left in 2017. So here we go again. There's a lack of transparency there, but there's things that you do have to stop and wonder about. What all of this information that's coming at us, it does make you think like, are all of these people fooled? Or that's a maybe in terms of a huge budget of billions and billions of dollars. 22 million doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, 22 million dollars is a substantial amount of money, and that money was being budgeted and used for this specific black budget Pentagon program, specifically looking into the threats. That's why it's called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, the threats that were possibly being posed by these UAPs in the sky. So transparency would be a great thing. I hope after they've, issued this preliminary assessment that they put out, that they are going to be a little more transparent in the future. But I'm not going to hold my breath and expect that at this point, just because of the long history of not being transparent and honest with us at a large scale. They were almost forced into doing this because information was being leaked out, between videos being circulated and then being put online, and then the New York Times article and all that. So I'm hoping that they'll be transparent, and I hope they're going to keep their promises about making it easier for military personnel to report any kind of UAP encounter and not have to fear being ridiculed or sanctioned in some way or punished, for coming forward and saying something. But I'm still a little leery about the official government efforts that are going to be going on from this point on with the whole, with this whole area of UAPs.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not the first time that information has been leaked and the government has had to do like damage control on a situation like that.
Right.
I want to kind of just go back and talk about that clip and Senator Harry Reid. So CBS News, this is from about a year ago, tweeted the 3 videos that were surfaced in 2017 that hold on. What's his name? Christopher Mellon.
Yes.
Yeah, that he leaked. So they posted these, and Senator Harry Reid, he's the senator, or was the senator of Nevada.
Nevada, mm-hmm. And the Senate Majority Leader, too, at that time.
Yeah, so he tweeted, this is what he said back to the tweet. It was just a little clip of the video that we showed, actually, in the in this podcast. So he says, I'm glad the Pentagon is finally releasing this footage, but it only scratches the surface of research and materials available. The U.S. needs to take a serious scientific look at this and any potential national security implications. The American people deserve to be informed. So I think that is a very strong tweet, especially coming from somebody who is in the Senate and is from Nevada. I mean, since he's from Nevada, Area 51 is in Nevada. We're kind of revisiting the whole Area 51 thing. Right. But I'm sure he's seen some stuff.
Yes, that's why he got so
Nevada.
Yeah, the reports that were coming to him, as he's made clear now. I think his intentions were absolutely sincere. It was military and civilian sources that were providing him with information that was saying, look, this is a serious thing. And he certainly met with these people, listened to them, looked at what they were presenting, and then made that decision of, look, we got to allot some money, some actual federal money into this, because this isn't some urban legend or some crazy mythology that's going around now, or, this isn't the result of hoaxes or people drinking a little bit too much and thinking they're saying things. This is a real possible threat to national security. And he was especially concerned, from what I've seen him say in some interviews, about the national security aspects of, unidentified objects of some sort going over our military bases, appearing to be testing our defensive systems here, and, going into restricted airspace. That's not something that should be taken lightly.
I agree. And I think that more people like Senator Harry Reid should be in positions of I guess you could say, power.
Yes, he's retired now.
People that want to be transparent with, the United States and the people of the United States. I think it's a good thing that he took the time, out of his day or week or whatever to sit down and listen to these people, explain their stories and what they saw. And he really did listen, and he didn't try and debunk them and say, oh, you're crazy, you're seeing things, et cetera, et cetera. And he actually kind of just took the time and listened and he believed these people. And I think that we need more people like that that want to see the government be transparent with the United States people.
Yes, I wish more officials in the government and in the military and in military intelligence in particular, when you would have face-to-face meetings like Senator Reid did with these people, that we do get away from that culture of ridicule or rolling the eyes and here we go again, and this is all lunatic fringe type of information. Take that more objective and serious approach, be willing to listen, and don't just rule out any possibility. Look at the evidence and then and investigate and do the research more thoroughly and using scientific methodology. Hopefully, that's the better approach than what we've seen up to now. So he does set a good example of how certainly elected leaders should be responding to this issue. And there are members of Congress right now that are concerned about this. I've seen some of them interviewed, on different TV news programs. They do want to, especially about these violations of U.S. airspace and restricted airspace. I mean, that is a concern. And there is the first question that comes to their mind, is this possibly foreign adversaries that are behind that? So that is a legitimate question. It's just that, as I said earlier, I have my doubts about whether it's actually foreign based on, the technology that they're displaying. So.
Yes, I agree, and I believe I my goodness, I agree to what you said, and I believe that we should kind of move forward and take action to figure out what these things are. So what you have up on the thing here is, do you mind if I just take, I'll read the first paragraph
absolutely,
here.
you take that over
so
there right now.
This is the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. So on August 4th, Deputy Secretary of Defense David L. Norquist?
Yes.
Okay. Approved the establishment of an Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, UAP, or UAPTF. The Department of the Navy, under the cognizance of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for the Intelligence and Security, will lead the UAPTF.
Right. So you'll see UAPTF, referred to in this report that came out. This was established August 4th, 2020, long, before this report. So they were involved in the preparation of this 9-page unclassified report that has been issued on the UAPs. The Department of Defense made it very clear at the time of this announcement that the mission of the task force would be to detect, analyze, and catalog any unidentified aerial phenomena that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. And they stressed the fact that the safety of U.S. military personnel and the security of all of our military operations are of paramount concern. So they take both the Department of Defense and all the military departments take any incursions by unauthorized aircraft into our training ranges or designated airspace, and that would be restricted airspaces like we talked about earlier, very seriously, and they will examine each report. So this was something that happened prior to the release of that report that we're talking about now, the UAPTF, that they were very much involved in the preparation of this, along with all those other agencies. So that is an organization that the Pentagon realized they had to do something, and they were definitely getting pressured by Congress. So here's, again, one of the results of transparency. As things were being leaked out, these reports, these videos, and all that, this is yet the result, another result of what was going on. They were willing to go so far as to actually set up a brand new task force to start coordinating all the research, all the investigations into these various UAPs. And that was back in 2020, long before this report was actually issued in June of 2021.
Yeah, and it just goes to pretty much further back up the evidence that it is damage control, and they're like, oh shoot, we need to do something about this, and we need to take action and make it seem like we're actually doing something.
Right.
Like to just put a face on for the United States citizens that we're actually being productive about this, and I just think it's frustrating, and it's almost annoying that they have to do this damage control and they have to pretty much put everything together last minute. And that's all I really have to say about that. I mean, it is frustrating because, like you've said before, the transparency with the government and the citizens is just, it's almost non-existent at this point. And I've said, and I'll say again, it's frustrating that things have to be leaked for any action to be taken even somewhat seriously. But even then, it's just some last minute thing that they kind of put together to just say, "Hey, we're looking into it," when we know that they know, they know, we know that they know that we know.
Well said. Very well said.
We know. We're on to you. Is all I have to say.
Yes, and keep in mind, too, that Congress controls the purse strings for the U.S. military. So when members of Congress, those members that got involved here, I mean, when they just got fed up enough or hearing enough from their constituents, from we the people, since, like I said, we're the ones financing all of this, we're paying the taxes, they had enough. So when they ordered that there had to be some kind of report, and it looks like it's going to be a periodic report that's going to have to continue. This was just the first one. They have to listen because that's who controls the money. The U.S. Congress controls the budget and the money. They're the ones that are going to give you, those billions of dollars that you need in order to maintain our national defense. And so they don't have any choice at that point but to respond, and that's what they did. The task force, the setting up the task force, and then eventually this report that was issued with the collaboration of all those 17 agencies that were involved in it. It's good pressure, I think, that's being put on the Pentagon to, increase the transparency that we need so much. But it's a shame it took that. It's a shame it had to go to this point. It's a shame that going back decades, really, when your own personnel and other reliable sources of reports and information were, saying things and turning reports in, it's a shame that they weren't treated with the respect, the open-mindedness, just the basic respect that they should have been treated with, and that these things weren't investigated the way they should have been investigated back when these things were happening over the last so many decades, back to the 1940s, really.
Yeah, I like what you said there, and I know we talked about people starting their own kind of like research, essentially, non-government funded, and to be honest, I feel like I would trust their findings more than I would trust the U.S. government's, because they can kind of pick and choose what is shared. And these non-government funded organizations, I feel, have been started because they feel deceived almost, and
Right.
and these are people who have been like put down and called crazy because of what they saw and what they believe in. So they're stepping up and they're doing their own research to be transparent with the United States citizens, unlike how the government has been previously with us.
Yes. And we're going to go into some of these organizations that have started now in response to this continual lack of transparency, the continual ridicule and humiliation of witnesses and all that. There have been now, and I think that's where the future, what we really have to look forward to in the future is that we're going to have independent organizations, no government funding involved with these, not government programs or military programs, but independent private organizations that are going to be trying to lead the way into independent and objective and scientific research. We'll go into this in just a moment, but one of the things I wanted to point out was I had just been reading about this earlier today. We were talking about, the UAP task force that was established back in 2020 by the Department of Defense in order to coordinate all this research. That is really only a temporary task force, though, when you look into it, and I didn't realize that at first. So right now, it's just something that I was reading earlier today, was that one of the things that's being considered, and again, this is information leaking out from the inside, but it is being reported, and I think these people seem to be credible officials, both in government and formal officials in government or military, that the United States Space Force, which was created during the Trump administration, is being looked at now as possibly the successor to this UAP task force that was put into effect in 2020, and that the Space Force itself would take over the operations and the investigations and all of the work that's going to be going on into the research on the UAPs. That surprised me, actually, when I read that. I didn't realize the UAP task force. I should have known that, I guess, but I didn't realize that it was actually only set up to be temporary. I thought that was going to be an ongoing thing, even after reading the 9-page report. But So now that's actually up in the air now. So who's going to be taking over? This is why I'm looking more towards independent organizations doing this, because I'm not so sure what's going to come out of all of this talk about, well, should we let the Space Force take it over and just dismantle the UAP task force? Some of the information leaking out is showing that people involved with the Space Force right now, aren't really too thrilled about this whole idea. And if you read some of the stuff that's coming out, because they already feel that they've been made the butt of many jokes and popular ridicule on maybe late night comedians and all that sort of thing. So here we go. I don't know who's actually going to be taking over then for the government the future work on UAP research. So I'm looking more towards independent groups.
Yeah.
And there's a couple that we've looked into, a couple that we've looked up. It's information that's available all over the net. The first one is called the Galileo Project at Harvard University. And this project was created by Professor Avi Loeb. He's a professor of science at Harvard, and for some years he was actually the chairman of their astronomy department there. So he is a traditional scientist, if that's how you want to phrase it, or a mainstream scientist. But Dr. Loeb is definitely concerned with what's going on now in the whole realm of the possibility of extraterrestrial life elsewhere. Not even getting into whether or not they're visiting here, but just the idea of extraterrestrial life existing. And then, though, we're going into the possibility of is that possibly what's behind some of these unidentified aerial phenomena? So I like the one quote that he has publicly stated, and you can see that on the website for the Galileo Project. Human beings can no longer ignore the possible existence of extraterrestrial civilizations, and science can not dogmatically reject possible extraterrestrial explanations regarding UAPs. He believes it's high time that the scientific community needs to scientifically and transparently look for potential evidence of extraterrestrial technological equipment. We already have, and we have had for some decades, the organization SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, using the radio telescopes. They're looking for electronic transmissions, radio transmissions that could possibly indicate some sort of intelligent civilizations out there somewhere, and they've been around for decades. So what the Galileo Project is aiming to do is they're not focusing on radio transmissions, they're looking for actual physical objects. That's a good step forward. So they're not trying to supplant the SETI operation, they're trying to, trying to replace it, but they're trying to, be partners in it. Let them focus on the radio transmissions, aspect of the search for extraterrestrial life, and they're going to be looking for actual physical objects. They've been pretty successful. From what I read, private citizens have already contributed almost, I think, $2 million to the Galileo Project. These are people that have seen Dr. Loeb on TV, or they've gone on, on the web or whatever, and they've seen interviews with him and papers that he's presented, and they like this idea of transparent scientific investigation of UAPs, and also looking at the possibility just that there could possibly be intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations that are behind these strange and mysterious and anomalous UAPs that are appearing and interacting with our military.
Yeah, and one of the things that I just want to point out real quick that Professor Loeb said is that these are almost, he said, here, I'll just read the quote.
Mm-hmm.
He dogmatically rejects the possibility of extraterrestrial explanations. And I mean, it's possible, and these UFOs move in such ways that are unexplainable. I mean, from a couple of the articles that I've read, I mean, they come to a stop and they can put it in reverse, and they can go up and down, and they can move in ways which we cannot mimic. And I'm sure a drone could not mimic. I mean, that's just my personal opinion here. I just think it is very plausible that there is extraterrestrial life.
The one final quote I would quote from Professor Loeb, or Dr. Loeb, is that the Pentagon UFOs, these UAPs that we're talking about here in this 9-page report that has come out, the Pentagon UFOs cannot be human-made because their behavior cannot be reproduced by our most advanced equipment. Now, that's coming from a solid scientist at Harvard University, and that's That's good enough for me. I like that. I like that quote, and I like what he's saying. Yes, he's looked at everything that's out there. He's reviewed this report and all that, but as of this point, his conclusion is that they just cannot be human-made. So that addresses that whole issue. Is it United States government, or is it some private corporation research secret project, or is it foreign adversaries? He's making it pretty clear these UAPs cannot be human-made. So I wish Dr. Loeb and all the other scientists that will be working on the Galileo project at Harvard a lot of luck. I hope they can really make some progress. And as it's made clear when you look on their website, or if you've seen any of the interviews with them, this is to be a scientific approach. No more rolling the eyes when you hear a UFO or anything like that. Let's just put all that aside, and let's try to just be objective and use scientific methodology in this investigation of these UAPs. That's long overdue. That's exactly what we should have been doing a long time ago in this country, and we haven't been. So I'm hoping that they have great success with their project.
So if we can just real quick get through these last two organizations here, and then we can hop into quick theories and then wrap this up. I'll just kind of read this one, and then
Yes,
you can go over what's in the bold there. So the next one is the UAP Expedition Group, which was formed by some of the military veterans who were involved in UAP sightings and incidents while they were in the military. So like I said, these are the people that I would probably believe over the government because they're fed up. They're sick of being swept under the rug, essentially.
Yeah, these are some of the people that were involved in the actual incidents. They're no longer with the military. And because of their experiences, because of all of the nonsense that they had to put up with while they were in the military, and the fact of being ignored or being hushed up or being brushed off, now that they're no longer in the military, they decided to form their own organization. The one thing that they stress on their own website, if you look that up, and that is UAP Expeditions, UAP Expedition Group, is that they're searching for UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, through techno-signatures in our skies. You have military veterans, you have physicists, research scientists, and just trained observers. So they're taking another approach to scientifically trying to investigate the whole UAP phenomena, and they're trying to do this independent of the government and independent of the military.
Very well said. We ready to hop into the third one here?
Yes, that's you can look this up on the web also. That's the To the Stars Academy. They've been on, I've seen them on TV a number of times there. So that's another private group, and you can look them up. That group consists of a lot of former officials from the Pentagon, CIA, the Department of Defense, and their goal is to collect documents and physical materials from both public and private sources, any type of materials that are related to the UAP phenomena. So we wish them a lot of luck. They have a lot of information on their websites out there, but those are just three. To me, I think they're the biggest three right now that I know of, but they're three of the private organizations that have formed to try and proceed with investigations without the government interference or funding.
Yeah, and I think this is another one that I would probably believe anything that they really put out, because they are officials from the Pentagon and the CIA and stuff like that. So they already have prior knowledge.
Yes.
To what they're releasing to the public.
Yeah, that includes Luis Elizondo that we were talking
Okay.
about from that ATIP group, from the Pentagon, and then he resigned. Yes, he was part of the formation of this To the Stars Academy. So I think all three of these, I think it's a great approach. I wish all of them luck, and I hope that they will give us some answers down the road. I know it's going to take a while because there's an awful lot involved with these mysterious UAPs, but I wish them all the best of luck because it's about time that we get some transparency on this and some honest, direct, scientific answers. That's really our right. Since we're the American people and the American taxpayers and we're funding this, it's the air over our heads, it's our skies. We have a right to know what's going on up there. And when you give us a report from the government saying, yes, we can tell you specifically of 143 incidents that we can't explain, that should be concerning to all of us, no matter how busy we are, and we all have our lives to lead and our jobs, and going to school and families and, just trying to make ends meet and all of that. But this is, I think, something that should be of natural interest to all of us because what are these things? We're naturally curious, number one, but, seriously, what are these things and where are they coming from? If we can rule out any number of these things that you've given us as options, that's a little bit frightening. It's a little bit frightening and a little bit, scary to think about. Like, there's stuff up there over our heads, and we don't know where it's coming from, and we don't know who's operating these things. We do know they're faster than anything we have, so that's a matter of concern, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, that is very, very compelling and very scary to think about. So I'm gonna kind of just hop into one of the theories I
Sure.
have real fast. So you know how people call the government Big Brother, and like Big Brother is always watching, and that pertains to like your search history and all that fun stuff. So what if these UFOs are extraterrestrial, and since we use the term Big Brother is always watching, what if the government also uses that same exact term for these UFOs? And it is these extraterrestrial life watching us and making sure we don't do anything wrong to harm or destroy the Earth, because maybe the Earth is an essential part to whatever they have going on in the galaxy or the solar system or something like
Elsewhere
that.
in the universe, yeah.
And they call it Big Brother, and they are watching because we've seen them in our restricted airspaces, just seeing kind of what's going on. They're not really tampering with anything, and they're not really posing a threat. So that's just my kind of little theory. I mean, it makes sense that they're watching over us, and they're just kind of making sure that nothing goes wrong, because, like I said, they're posing no threat to us, and they haven't used really any deadly force, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But I think that maybe that would be a good theory. I would love to hear anyone else's theories or thoughts on my little theory there. And Mark, if you have anything to say about it, I'd like to hear that.
No, that is actually a very popular theory that is going around. And it's been going around for a long time, though. Again, going back decades. I can show you a book I have with me here from when I was a child from 1967. And, the title, Why Are They Watching Us? And you have this guy like kind of running away from a flying saucer, UFO. One thing I would say is that, when we do use the terms UFO or UAP, I would always encourage everyone, don't just jump to the conclusion that it's extraterrestrial or something. It's just unidentified. We don't know. I mean, they may be able to identify it, and maybe we will get some more answers from either these private groups or from future reports from the Pentagon and from the Pentagon and our intelligence agencies. But no, that is a theory, and it's a theory that's been going on for some time now. When I was watching one of my favorite physicists, besides so there's a couple of them, but Professor Michio Kaku from City University of New York. I've seen him interviewed a number of times since those videos were first being leaked, and then after this UAP report was issued from the National Intelligence Office. So I watched him, and I heard him saying very clearly that up until these videos started coming out and, this report has come out, whenever you would have physicists together talking, if the term UFO came up or UAP, they would just be rolling their eyes, because to them it was just absolute nonsense. It was just misidentifications or hoaxes or people in an alcoholic daze, from having a little bit too much. Literally, that's what he said. But once he started seeing these videos and watching the testimony of our own military pilots, he called that, quote, a game changer. Now, that doesn't mean it's necessarily extraterrestrial, like he said, but he believes the United States government is really still number one, or United States military, and our research and development, we're still number one, and we have developed these hypersonic drones and just haven't, made it public knowledge to the American people, let alone the rest of the world. Or they're from somewhere else. Not where could that be? And of course, one of the ideas would be, then perhaps from beyond this planet, extraterrestrial of some sort, from where we wouldn't know, but from somebody. And that does go along with your idea, what you're saying there about us being watched. Just like that book I was referencing from 1967, Why Are They Watching Us? There are any number of people who for decades have been saying that it is possible, can't prove this yet, but it is possible that these anomalous craft, these things that seem to be able to do things that we certainly can't do with our technology here, are observing us. They're not attacking us. They're not doing anything like that. And why would that be? Is it because they have something to do with our own human race being on this planet? There's certainly been books written about how at one point in the history of the Homo sapien, species here on the planet, that someone possibly could have come down here and done some genetic manipulation and then kind of changed the way the human race was developing. And now they're coming, they're watching, they're observing, they're seeing what we're doing. What have these beings done now that we've changed certain things and made them a little bit different from what they were evolving into? And I mean, that's just one theory. I don't know. I think about it a lot, but I can't say that I actually have strong beliefs in that particular theory. Or are they people that had nothing to do with the creation of the human race or any kind of manipulation of our genetic material? eons ago here on the planet, but they are intelligent races that are much older than us. And that's something that I've heard Professor Kaku talk about. I've certainly heard Professor Loeb talk about that too, that if you have, there are many, many stars in the universe that are substantially older than our star, the sun. So, as the universe from the point of the Big Bang on, as the universe expanded out, you have galaxies and stars within the galaxy that are far, far older than our own solar system, let alone our own galaxy. And so the possibility of if life and intelligent life did evolve on some planet around some other star that's much older than us, that particular race of extraterrestrials would be far in advance of what we have as far as our technology. And that perhaps that would enable them to come here and, out of natural curiosity, if nothing else, be observing what's going on this planet or looking at this species, just like our own scientists and our own, medical researchers or animal researchers on the planet here are doing with species on this planet. They study different animal species, different species of insects. There's all kinds of, research that's been going on, certainly over the last 50 or 60 years, where we're looking at other species, not necessarily to make friends with them. We're studying them. We're trying to learn about them, and they're on this planet. They're sharing it with us. That's a pretty popular theory, that these craft could somehow, these unidentified aerial phenomena could somehow be tied in with much older extraterrestrial civilizations that are observing us. They are curious and they are watching what's going on. And if they've been watching us since the 1940s, they've seen the development of atomic weapons and all kinds of other things. And would there be a concern about, are these people on this planet going to be spreading something that could be dangerous elsewhere within our universe? So that's a theory too. So I don't think you're not far off at all with your theory. I think it's a very good idea. We'll just have to keep going with all of these private organizations and see what else the government comes up with, because right now, my belief in it all is we just don't know. We just don't know. I mean, other people are saying that perhaps these things are what's called interdimensional, and you and I have talked about that, and that's for laymen like us, that's a tough concept to, get our arms around. But could it be that these are coming from something beyond the dimensions that we understand as human beings on this earth right now? Is this universe more complex than we thought it was? And there are certainly physicists right now that are talking along those terms. Right here in the United States, I've listened to any number of physicists talking about the possibility. The math is leading them to the conclusion that there's more than one universe. There's a multiverse. There could be Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, in each universe there could be another, an actual copy of us. So that's a possibility too. I mean, interdimensional, who knows? That's why we need transparency. It would help us to get to the answers. But if we're dealing with something that's a very advanced civilization, like any number of scientists have said, if we encounter the technology of a civilization that's far older than us, that technology is going to come off like something as magical things that we just can't comprehend or understand, or or like Dr. Loeb said, that we can't reproduce here on this earth right now.
I agree with really everything you said, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say about it. We would like you guys to reach out to us on our social medias, our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube comments works as well. Right now, the best way to support us and to show love to us is to leave a like, subscribe, follow, all of our social medias. And like I said, whether you liked the podcast or you didn't like it, constructive criticism is accepted. And I'm pretty much going to leave this as is. I'm going to just add the video clip that I said I was going to add. Mm-hmm. And I would like to hear back from you guys. I know for a fact I can still improve. So I would like to see what I can improve on and what, you guys think, and what theories you have, and what suggestions you guys have for episodes and stuff like that. So I'm excited to hear from you guys. And Mark, if you want to add anything to that real quick.
No, that was very well said. One thing, we're going to be exploring all kinds of different topics on the podcast in the future. This is not just going to be a podcast centered on UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena. There's going to be all sorts of subjects that we're going to be covering, and we'd like to have suggestions from anyone about things that you might want us to look into, or see if we've done any research on topics that we could talk about in future podcasts. So that's important. And also, we don't want this particular podcast right now. It's not our intention to be trying to frighten anybody or, get anyone scared about this whole topic. We wanted to do this podcast because we want to share all the reading that we've done, the research we've done, the discussions that we've had with each other over, like, for example, on this topic right now that we're talking about. That's what we do, and we've been doing it for years. I've known Zach since he was born, so we've had quite a few interesting discussions over the years. We don't want anyone to be intimidated or anything like that. We're just trying to make everybody aware. When we looked at that Pew survey and it showed how many people weren't even aware that the government was going to be issuing a report on unidentified aerial phenomena or UFOs, that was concerning to us because we realized like people are just so overloaded right now. And it's such an important topic, and we think it is a matter of national security and air safety for the people of the United States as well as the rest of the world. We just thought that this would be the nice topic to start with, and we wanted to launch our new podcast with this particular subject. We do have a mascot behind us, Zach, and he doesn't have a name yet. That is our mascot. That's something I collected some years ago.
So with that, we want you guys to come up with a name for him, and we kind of want to just kind of include him in the episodes, give him a name, kind of start a conversation with you guys. And that's what we want the podcast to be in general. We're not trying to push our beliefs on you. We want it to be a conversation. We want you guys to be able to like drop your theories down below in the comments and stuff like that, or post on social media, even message us if you don't feel comfortable publicly speaking about what you believe in. And we just want to have a conversation. We want to see where your guys' beliefs lie and what you guys think of all the topics that we're going to cover. And like I said, we have Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if some of you are interested, we do have a TikTok. It is at Uncle Mark's Attic, but in between each word. So Uncle's, there would be a dot, Mark's dot attic, and then you can find us on TikTok if you're interested. We'll probably just end up posting some clips there, here and there, or whatever. But we are interested to hear from you guys, and we thank you guys for listening and or for watching. Like I said, the best way to support us right now is to just share this with your friends. Follow us on our social medias, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.
Yes, we will. Thank you very much for watching this, and we hope to see you again. You're always welcome in Uncle Mark's Attic.